Good morning, St. Philip's family, and a blessed Tuesday after the Ascension to you. Today in our reflections on the Psalter, I want to keep in the celebratory spirit of the Ascension and look at one of the Psalms that the early church fathers saw as foretelling and describing the event of the Ascension, and that's Psalm 24. But whereas in the Gospel accounts, along with Acts chapter 1, we get a picture of the ascension from below. That is, from the point of Jesus' departure from the earth. Psalm 24, along with Daniel 7, gives us a picture of his arrival at the very gates of heaven. In the Gospel accounts, we see from the disciples' point of view. In Psalms 24, we see from the view of the heavenly creatures. So let's read Psalm 24, starting at verse 3 here. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, and who has not set his mind upon vanity, nor sworn to deceive his neighbor. And let's skip down to verse 7. Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is the King of glory? It is the Lord, strong and mighty, even the Lord, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. Notice the question the psalmist poses in verse 3 here. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? This is referring to the idea of going up a mountain, a holy mountain, perhaps up the Temple Mount. But ultimately, it's referring to going up into the place where God's immediate and manifest presence dwells. And the question is, who can go there? Who can go? The psalmist says, only the one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not set his mind on vanity. The idea here is one of holiness. Because of God's holiness, no one can come into the environment of his immediate and manifest presence unless they too are absolutely morally pure and clean and holy. His nature is such that if one came into his presence without being completely sinless and pure, they just wouldn't survive. Well, let me give you an example. When I was about 8 years old, I saw Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks in it. Some of you may have seen that movie. And I decided then and there that I wanted to be an astronaut. I remember studying all I could about the planets, hoping to be able to go to them one day. When I suddenly came to realize that, I can live on Earth, I can't live on Mars. I can't live on Venus. I can't live on Saturn. I can't live on Jupiter. And do you know why I can't live on Jupiter? Because the gases and the pressures there would kill me instantly. You see, I cannot live in the environment of Jupiter. You and I, in our current sinful and fallen state, cannot live in the environment of God. We can't survive in His holiness. God lives in an atmosphere of absolute purity and sinlessness and light. We can't survive there. So who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? Or who shall stand in His holy place? Well, no one from the stock of Adam and Eve's race would ever dare to do such a thing, would they? Because we've all fallen. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. No human can go into that environment, can they? Well, fortunately for us, there was one, and only one. Because the Son of God came down from that environment to be born as one of us, born as one of Adam's race. He joined our human nature to His own divine, holy nature, and he came here where he lived the perfect life as a human being. His heart remained pure. He never sinned. He never set his mind on vanity, not even for 1 second. He always did the will of his Father. And after he makes atonement for the sin of Adam's race on the cross and he's raised from the dead, he says, "Who shall ascend to the hill of the Lord? I shall ascend the hill of the Lord. I shall stand in his holy place." And the last 4 verses of this psalm pick up after he gets to the very top of his ascent and he begins to approach the gates of heaven. We might see the events unfolding as something like this. Jesus ascends to the gate of heaven with the 2 angels with whom he had departed with at his side. If you'll remember, those 2 angels were at his side when he departed from the earth, and as the disciples were looking on, they were the ones who said to the disciples, "Why do you look on? Do you not know that this Jesus whom you see departing in this way is going to return in this exact same way?" Well, Jesus ascends to that gate, and as they approach the gate of heaven, one of those angels at Jesus' side cries out with a loud voice, verse 7, "Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in." And one of the angels or some other heavenly creatures who's manning the gate yells back, "Who is this King of glory?" And the angel at Jesus' side says firmly, "It is the Lord, strong and mighty, even the Lord mighty in battle." And so the angel at his other side cries out again, "Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in." And you know, the creatures inside, they're probably awestruck. And again they ask, "Who is this King of glory?" To which the reply comes, "The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory." And for the first time ever, those gates swing wide open for a human being with flesh and blood and with hair and fingernails, just like you and I. As Jesus walks through those gates, and he walks right up to the throne of his Father to stand in his holy place with clean hands and with a pure heart. And just as the high priest would carry 12 gemstones that represented the 12 tribes of Israel on his breastplate into the Holy of Holies each year to make intercession for the people of Israel, so Jesus carried you and me and carries you and me on his heart in his own flesh and blood, sharing a nature with us into the holy presence of his Father forever, to represent us, to intercede for us, to make sure that not a hair from our head falls apart from his sovereign will. So fear not, little flock. Let the world, let the devil, let any adversary that can be found do what it will to you. Because if the ascended Son of God is for you, who can be against you? Well, God bless you today, and may you have the spirit of joy as we continue our celebration of the Lord's Ascension this week.